The university campus had always been a microcosm of contrasts, but when Brandon, Eduardo, and Vinicius arrived, the atmosphere changed. They were not just wealthy, they used their wealth to make an impact at every corner. They walked through the campus as if the world revolved around them, each step immortalized by admiring or bewildered looks. They had a clear plan: dominate, conquer, and humiliate anyone within their reach. And somehow, everyone around them felt it, a mixture of respect, fear, and envy. Brandon, with his confident posture, was always surrounded by the other two, who fed off others' admiration. They didn't need to make any effort to stand out. Their expensive cars, brand-name clothes, and luxurious parties were their calling cards. What impressed most was not just what they had, but how much it made them feel superior. They were the kings of the campus, and the respect from others came from a sense of fear, more than genuine admiration. Eduardo loved using his status to intimidate. Whenever a colleague tried to get close, he made it clear who was in control. His arrogant behavior had one clear goal: to humiliate. He loved seeing others shrink in comparison to how they truly were. When someone tried to talk about their academic or social achievements, Eduardo responded with a sarcastic smile, as if it was impossible for anyone to be relevant next to them. Their image, after all, was everything. Vinicius, on the other hand, knew exactly how to manipulate others. His strategy was more subtle, more disguised. While the other two were open in their arrogance, Vinicius made sure to create a game of friendship, only to later use it to his advantage. When someone needed help, he was there. But deep down, his goal was to ensure that others would always owe him, be indebted to him. "What would you do without me?" was his mantra. It was amidst this atmosphere of superiority that Anna entered. She, in turn, didn't have a fancy car or brand-name clothes, and her presence on campus went unnoticed. But like a silent breeze, she entered the campus and, little by little, began to build a reputation for her academic performance and, more importantly, for her work ethic. Anna knew she couldn't compete with the superficial shine of others, but she had something far more powerful: her own worth. Brandon, Eduardo, and Vinicius saw Anna as a threat, not because of her appearance, but because of how she excelled in her courses. They were used to being the best, to being the center of attention, but this humble girl was standing out in a way they didn't know how to handle. "She doesn't belong here," they thought, and it bothered them more than they could admit. They, who seemed unshakable, were beginning to realize that not everything could be bought. But Anna wasn't the type to be intimidated. She knew she was stepping into a minefield, where her humble demeanor could be mistaken for weakness. But what she had that was most powerful was the authenticity of her essence. She didn't need wealth to stand out, nor status to be respected. Her intelligence and character were enough. And with these qualities, she would begin to write her own story on campus, without needing to bow to anyone's arrogance. It was clear to everyone on campus, the trio enjoyed the idea of controlling others. Brandon, Eduardo, and Vinicius didn't need much effort to dominate the environment. They used their expensive clothes and luxury cars as symbols of power, something that, in their eyes, made them above the rules and the respect one should give to others. For them, the idea of humility was a concept that didn't exist, and respect was something earned not by virtue, but through fear. When someone stood out in any area, there they were to bring them down. Whether in a hallway conversation or a class presentation, the trio didn't hesitate to clip others' wings with sharp words. They saw any attempt by someone to shine as a threat to their dominance. And instead of helping or motivating, they used their power to put others down. It wasn't just about standing out, it was about showing that no one could surpass them, even if it was by their own merit. Eduardo, the most incisive of the trio, liked to turn any interaction into an opportunity to showcase his superiority. During class, he interrupted classmates with sarcastic comments, cutting down any attempt at intelligent reflection that went against his ideas. "You think you can be better than me," he'd say with a dismissive smile, while the others just fell silent, not knowing how to react. He didn't want to listen, he wanted to impose. Vinicius, on the other hand, preferred a more calculated game. He knew his friend's reputation was already solidified, so he used friendship as a tool of manipulation. If someone stood out in an area, he began to approach that person, offering compliments disguised as interest. But at the slightest sign of weakness, he made sure to throw in a cutting remark. The goal was always the same, to make sure others felt small. Brandon's arrogance had a profound impact on the campus. His superior smile wasn't just for his friends, but for everyone around. He liked to place himself at the center of everything, and anyone who dared question his ideas was seen as a threat to his position. However, what no one knew was that this confidence was actually a reflection of the insecurity he had held behind his facade of luxury. The trio began to be known for their lack of empathy. Professors, staff, and students watched from a distance, but few dared rebel. When someone tried to confront them, the response was always the same, an attack on the person's vulnerability. "It's no use trying, you'll never be like us," was the collective thought. And so, as their influence grew, resentment also spread. The atmosphere on campus, once vibrant, was now saturated with frustration. This atmosphere of abuse of power was creating deep divisions among the students. People started to feel disconnected, lonely, afraid to take risks. They were controlled by what the trio represented, power that didn't come from virtue or hard work, but from a superficial and manipulative way of standing out. The campus was breathing in a toxic environment of distrust, and few dared to question the legitimacy of this hierarchy. When Anna first entered the campus, many looked at her with curiosity, but few truly noticed her. Her modest appearance, with simple clothes and a plain backpack, didn't match what was expected from a university student. The campus was used to those who flaunted, and Anna, with her quiet demeanor, seemed like just another ordinary student. But, as we will see, sometimes the greatest value is hidden beneath the surface, far from the more obvious glances. Anna didn't have a luxury car, nor did she walk down the halls with an arrogant smile. She didn't need that. Her true strength lay in her mind, in her ability to absorb knowledge, and in her sincere desire to make a difference. When she arrived for class, she was always ready, paying attention to the details, with a notebook full of precise notes and an open mind to learn. But no one knew that what she was really there to do was much bigger than just getting good grades. In the first few weeks, most students focused on parties and social interactions. But Anna had a different focus. She knew her opportunity lay in academic pursuits, and that was what truly mattered to her. It didn't matter if others saw her as the quiet girl or the shy student. She wasn't there to be observed, but to learn and grow. This, without a doubt, set her apart in a way no material luxury could. As the classes progressed, Anna began to stand out in a remarkable way. Her assignments were flawless, her responses in discussions always relevant and well-founded. She was becoming a quiet reference for the professors. But what really made her special was her character. Anna wasn't in a rush to put herself in the spotlight, but she knew that her actions would speak for themselves. Her humility and intelligence were impressive, and little by little, some started to notice the difference between who was truly there to shine and who was just pretending. Brandon, Eduardo, and Vinicius, on the other hand, continued to have fun with their power abuse practices. But something started to bother them. Anna wasn't intimidated. She didn't bow down to the provocations, didn't react to sarcasm. And this made them question, who was this girl? How could she be so different from the others, with her simplicity, and yet stand out so clearly? To them, it was a veiled threat, and it made them nervous. The trio didn't know how to handle Anna's presence. They were used to being the biggest, the smartest, and the most influential. But this girl, needing nothing but her mind and her character, was starting to surpass them. They tried to ignore her at first, but that only made Anna's presence solidify faster. She wasn't there to please or adapt to their world, she was there to change the rules of the game. Anna's entry wasn't just about her arriving at the university. It was about a new type of presence, one that challenged everything the trio considered certain. And, unknowingly, she had already started leaving an indelible mark. She didn't know she was about to be at the center of a transformation, but what she did naturally was precisely what the others lacked. She was real, she was authentic, and that was the greatest weapon against any arrogance. That day, the tension on campus was palpable. It was one of those moments when something inevitable was about to happen. The trio of Brandon, Eduardo, and Vinicius, always accustomed to intimidating others, never imagined that their arrogance would finally be confronted. Anna, who had been standing out quietly until then, knew she could no longer hide. What she had to say was much bigger than any arrogance they could display. It was an academic discussion, something for the trio that was just another opportunity to showcase their superior understanding of things. But on that day, Anna didn't stay silent. When Eduardo made a subtle jab about the academic performance of some classmates, Anna raised her hand. It wasn't an impulsive gesture, but a firm one, as if she knew exactly what she was doing. And when she spoke, everyone realized there was more in her calm gaze than they could imagine. I believe true intelligence doesn't come from what you can show, but from what you're able to learn and apply, Anna said, without hesitation. The room fell silent. Brandon looked at her with a cynical expression, but she didn't let herself be shaken. She wasn't there to please anyone, nor to prove anything. She was there to, finally, put the trio in their place, showing that true strength comes from humility and knowledge. Eduardo, of course, tried to belittle Anna, with that superior smile that was already becoming his trademark. "Do you really think you can compete with us?" he said, trying to turn the situation into a joke. But Anna wasn't intimidated. She continued, now more assertive. "Maybe you can hide behind your wealth and status, but what really matters is what we do with knowledge and respect for others. That, yes, is what builds character." Vinicius, trying to be the mediator, jumped into the conversation, trying to shift the focus to something more palatable. But Anna didn't let herself be distracted. She knew this was the moment to expose the farce behind the image they had so carefully cultivated. It's not about flaunting, it's not about showing off. That's an empty game. And I don't need to play that game to be seen. Her words felt like a fresh breeze, and for the first time, the trio's confidence wavered. Brandon, usually so sure of himself, was now staring at Anna, as if trying to understand how she could remain so calm in the face of so much provocation. He had never seen anyone challenge him like that. They were used to underestimating others, but Anna, with her calmness and intelligence, was exposing their superficiality effortlessly, without bitterness, only with the truth. Anna's demonstration wasn't just an academic victory, it was a paradigm shift. She didn't need money, status, or appearance to show what truly mattered. What she had was more valuable than any material wealth. She had the ability to inspire, to provoke thought, to challenge. And in that moment, she not only confronted the trio but also made it clear that true greatness is not measured by ostentation, but by substance. When Eduardo learned that Anna was standing out, he saw an opportunity. For him, things couldn't continue like this. It was unacceptable that such a simple girl was challenging the status quo. So, he started to come up with a plan, a cunning scheme designed to ridicule Anna in front of everyone. He invited her to his birthday party, an event that promised to be the biggest of the year. She'll regret getting involved with us, he thought, convinced that humiliation would be the perfect response to diminish the pressure she was creating. Anna, with her humble and unpretentious way, didn't think twice before accepting the invitation. To her, Eduardo's birthday party was just another opportunity to socialize, even though she didn't share the same view of ostentation that the others did. She knew Eduardo's world was superficial, but she thought she might have some fun, relax a bit, and maybe even learn something from the experience. But, contrary to what Anna imagined, Eduardo's goal was very different. He had invited Anna not to celebrate, but to put her in an uncomfortable situation. He knew that his party would be the perfect stage to make her feel inferior, with all the glamour surrounding it. It was a clear attempt to expose the difference between the two worlds, Anna's world, simple and without luxury, versus Eduardo's world, filled with ostentation and status. He knew that by placing her in an environment she wasn't familiar with, he could humiliate her. Eduardo made sure everyone at the party knew who was coming. He spread rumors about Anna, suggesting she didn't belong in that environment. "She'll never fit in here," he'd say to his friends. Eduardo's plan was taking shape, and he was becoming more and more sure that with the public exposure, Anna would be ashamed and leave the party feeling defeated. However, as often happens with those who plan to humiliate others, Eduardo didn't account for Anna's ability to turn any situation into an opportunity for growth. She didn't let herself be shaken by the gossip and insinuations. Instead of being intimidated, she focused on what really mattered, the experience. Anna knew she couldn't control the intentions of others, but she could control how she reacted to them. And her reaction would be something no one expected. The birthday party was approaching, and the atmosphere was charged with expectations. Eduardo was confident his plan would work as planned, but he underestimated the power of a true and authentic person. He didn't know that he was about to discover that, no matter how much wealth and status try to intimidate, nothing is more powerful than self-confidence and character. The game was about to turn, and Anna, without even realizing it, had already started her own turnaround. When Anna arrived at Eduardo's party, no one was expecting her with great anticipation. She entered discreetly, without the pomp that most of the guests flaunted. But something was different that night. By her side was Brandon, a powerful and influential figure, very different from anything Eduardo's trio could have imagined. Brandon wasn't just a friend of Anna, he was someone who, by his own merit, had already made his mark in the world. His success and influence caught everyone's attention, leaving the trio in shock as they realized Anna wasn't alone. As they entered the room, eyes turned to Anna and Brandon, and soon the atmosphere at the party shifted. Eduardo, who had a malicious smile on his face, trying to hide his satisfaction with Anna's arrival, felt a chill when he saw who was standing next to her. Brandon was known not only for his success, but for his ability to move people and situations. Eduardo's smile quickly faded, and the trio realized that, perhaps, the game wasn't as simple as they had imagined. Anna hadn't come to be humiliated. She was there to show that, despite the external differences, she wasn't someone easy to underestimate. By entering with Brandon, she not only defied expectations, but also exposed Eduardo's plan. What others didn't know was that Anna wasn't just having fun, she was strategically transforming the situation. The humiliation Eduardo had planned was no longer a possibility, but a reality that was about to be reversed. Brandon's calm and assured gaze met those of Eduardo and Vinicius. They immediately realized the plan was failing. The trio was used to using status to manipulate others, but this time, power was on Anna's side. Brandon's entrance dismantled all the arrogance that Eduardo and his friends had cultivated. And with every surprised and confused look on the faces of the guests, their plan was falling apart even more. The most interesting thing of all was the transformation happening there. Eduardo, who had always felt in control, was now losing his composure. His party, which was supposed to be the stage for Anna's humiliation, was now the stage for his own defeat. He tried to cover it up, but with each passing moment, the scene became clearer. Anna wasn't the person they thought she was. She was far more prepared to deal with what life threw at her than anyone in the trio could have imagined. Meanwhile, Anna, with her calm smile, looked around, in no hurry to impose herself or defeat anyone. She knew the real victory was in how she would respond to the attempt to humiliate her. She didn't need to show anything more than her authenticity. When she finally approached Eduardo, it wasn't with the intention of confronting him, but to show, with Brandon by her side, that she was on a much higher level than the game of power and manipulation he was trying to play. Eduardo's plan, with all its malicious intentions, had unraveled before everyone's surprise. The truth was simple, no one there was really interested in seeing who was winning or losing, but what became clear was the lesson everyone was learning: true greatness is not in what you have, but in who you are. And, in that moment, Anna had silently won the game, needing nothing more than her own truth. Eduardo's birthday party, which was supposed to be the stage for Anna's humiliation, turned into the setting for a bombshell revelation. The trio was stunned, watching their own plan crumble before the eyes of everyone. Brandon's presence next to Anna wasn't just a surprise for the guests, but an exposure of everything behind the trio's attitudes. Eduardo, who always considered himself the leader of the group, saw his confidence and power being undermined in a way he never imagined. Realizing that the situation was out of control, Eduardo tried to regain control of the party, but the atmosphere had already shifted. His friends, Vinicius and Brandon, were quiet, aware that the situation had taken an irreversible turn. The climate of arrogance and superiority had given way to palpable discomfort. For them, the power game and manipulation no longer seemed so attractive, and they began to realize that their actions had much larger consequences than they had imagined. The moment of humiliation for Eduardo and his group didn't happen as they had planned. Instead of seeing Ana embarrassed, as they had imagined, they were being exposed for their own superficiality. The masks began to fall, and what had seemed like a celebration turned into a turning point for everyone. It was as if, by trying to put others down, the trio had dug their own social grave. People around them were starting to realize how empty their arrogance truly was. Ana, who hadn't been intimidated, observed everything from a distance. She didn't need to take revenge or point out the mistakes of others. Her presence there, with Brandon by her side, was the answer everyone needed to see. The lesson was clear: true humility comes from within, and those who try to humiliate others to feel superior only reveal their own weaknesses. Ana did nothing but stay true to herself, and that was the greatest lesson of all. It was when silence took over the room that Eduardo finally approached Ana. There was no longer that superior attitude, but an attempt at reconciliation. I'm sorry, he said, with a look that, though still shy, reflected a genuine attempt to correct his wrongs. Vinicius and Brandon, who had been by his side before, now seemed small, unsure of how to react to the situation. The trio had been forced to face the reality of their actions, and Ana, with her serenity, didn't need to do anything more. Time and action spoke for themselves. The transformation that took place before everyone's eyes was not only that of an arrogant trio, but also a collective lesson about the true meaning of respect. Ana, with her humility and character, showed that greatness is not in what you have, but in who you are. The trio, now embarrassed, found themselves forced to reflect on their actions, and the other students, who had once feared the powerful figures on campus, now saw clearly the true face of humility. At the end of the night, Eduardo's birthday party was remembered, not for the luxury or pomp, but for the moment when respect and true greatness were revealed. The trio, who had once thought they were untouchable, learned that true strength comes from what can't be bought: character, humility, and the ability to acknowledge one's mistakes. And so, Ana's lesson wasn't just for them, but for everyone who was there, listening attentively to the words and, more importantly, observing the actions. And now, think carefully: what truly defines your greatness? Is it how much you possess or the impact you have on the people around you? True strength comes from your ability to remain true to who you are, regardless of the circumstances. And you, are you ready to change the way you see the world around you? Could your humility become the greatest weapon against superficiality? Or will you continue to be swayed by the idea that status and power define everything? Remember, life is a game where true wealth isn't in things, but in people. And the choices you make today, the respect you give and receive, shape who you really are. Now, imagine what could happen if you started applying these principles in your own life. What transformations would you be able to achieve? If you like what you saw here, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and don't miss the upcoming videos. Let's continue this journey of transformation together, because your success and power begin with what you learn and apply today. Are you ready to take the next step?